It's a chance now for us to look ahead, shall we, to the semi-final against Denmark on Wednesday night, live here on talkSPORT from Wembley. And Stuart, at the top of the show, you already sort of mentioned Denmark and how difficult a game it is going to be for England.
I think this is going to be a really, really tight game. I think we've got a team here with a cause, and they're fighting for a cause. And I was on our League Managers Association call, and I was listening to Brendan Rodgers one day who was speaking, and he said, what's a big thing about team and building teams? He said, give the team a cause. And I went away and thought about it and thought, you know what, sometimes in the environments I've been in, if you've got a cause to fight for, I understand that mentality. And it's the same with the Danes now. The Danes have got a cause to fight for beyond just the Euros with the Christian Eriksen situation. Their togetherness when that situation happened on the pitch was there for all to see. It was fantastic. And I think that makes them an even stronger outfit than the actual footballing ability they have.
And Stuart, they play with a back three. They like to play Kier, Christensen and Vestergaard as that three. Do you think Gareth will be tempted to go back to what he did against Germany, go and match them up and think, well, I've got better players in all the positions, that I think that's the way to beat them?
I don't, Cass, to be fair. I think he'll go with a 4. He'll keep the 4. I think he'll try and... My opinion is he'll probably think that our lineup will be strong enough to impose our style of play on them without changing to match up and nullifying them a little bit. That's how I'm seeing this. As I say, I'm not sure. He's been very clever. He'll go into depth on Denmark a touch more, obviously, than I have at this moment in time. But I'm seeing it a back 4, if I'm being honest.
Right. Okay. Dangers. I said earlier to Natalie, I just talked about the forwards of Denmark, and I'd seen a lot of Kasper Dolberg over the years, and he's a bit of an enigma. He's having a bit of a shining time at this tournament, but they have Braithwaite with pace. They have Dolberg that's more of a sort of a leader of the line and quite technically gifted, and then obviously Damsgaard that is really gifted. So it's a very strange front three in many ways that England will have different problems to handle.
It will as well, and flexibility of those three as well, you know, probably not standing in slots that are recognisable and easy for defenders to mark. So they've got a little bit of everything up there. There's some real talent in the attacking side of their team. You know, they've almost got a touch of everything. Very difficult to break down and score against, I would say. And you look through, I mean, we've got 4 or 5 players that are playing Premier League football, and their form is very, very good, you know, and... Mailer, who's playing the left wing back role. I mean, he's a right-footed player, but his cross yesterday was.
I've never seen a cross like that for years. I can't think of anybody who's ever played a ball with their outside their boot on the run as playing left back. Like you say, he's right-footed. Sure, it's extraordinary, wasn't it?
With that accuracy as well, you know, you've played up front yourself. It was a striker's dream, wasn't it? You know, fading away from the goalkeeper, just curling into you, and with a written invitation on it, and saying, you know, dip your bread, as they say.
Well, they certainly did that, didn't they? As Dolberg got that goal. Let's hear from Gareth Southgate, because it was really interesting. During the game against Ukraine, he sort of mentioned how his mind started to wander about that semi-final with Denmark, which may allude to some of the substitutions we saw in the game. This is what he had to say even when he was speaking to talkSPORT.
That was happening 20 minutes before the end of the game, to be honest. So they beat us in the autumn. We only drew in Copenhagen. I think they're a very good team. Very underestimated. I think as a football nation, they do incredibly well. They've produced so many good players for the size of the population. I've got a lot of friends there in Denmark who work in their coach education and stuff like that. So this is I know what everyone will be saying at home, but this is a really tough test for us, and we're going to have to be at our very best to get through it.
Yeah, so that's Gareth Southgate reflecting on the Denmark squad, but also mentioning those results in the Nations League where England didn't win against Denmark, lost and drew. I mean, does that have any bearing going into this? Or Stuart, how different is England now in comparison to the team that faced Denmark in those 2 matches?
Well, I think now what it will do is... I'm quite pleased that the results were as they were. I think it sharpens your focus every time you get beaten or don't be victorious against a team, it sharpens your focus next time out. There'll be no complacency for this game. The euphoria around it will be we're overriding favourites. It'll be an easy game outside of the England setup and the immediate England setup. But Gareth will realise with these two results that this isn't an easy game, and then be absolutely, as we saw against the Ukrainians, no complacency in the way we approach the game.
Yeah, and Stuart, you've been there, semi-final, Wembley, European Championships, so you've got to somehow keep your players' feet on the ground, as in don't get carried away, don't get overexcited. You've been there, Stuart, so just give us a bit of an indication going back to 96 what it was like.
I think by the time you hit that stage in a tournament, you've almost got so much momentum and groundswell on your side. Now, looking back on the two semis I played, I'm not sure from an ability-wise we could have done much more. We were just knocked over on penalty shootouts by, I don't know whether you call it a better side or you just say, look, after 2 hours of football there was nothing to choose between the two sides, and that was probably a fair case. I don't think any of the sides left any stone unturned in trying to win the game, what I would say in those games. And I see the same format now for our boys. They've galvanised so much experience and confidence over not just this tournament and the run they've been on, but bear in mind the last World Cup they went to the semi-final as well, and that experience will stand them in great stead as well going forward. And I think they'll approach it like I've seen them, with no fear. They'll play their own game. They were nice and confident in everything they've tried to do. And it's one of those, if we're good enough to win the game on the day, which I think we will be, we'll progress and another challenge.
What I would say, Stuart, and I said this yesterday, that I really believe that England are a far better team than they were in 2018, and they made the semi-finals. I think this group has developed via Gareth. Harry's improved the squad, the dynamics, the relationships between everybody. I think they're a better team now.
I totally agree with you. They got more strength in depth. They've got more togetherness, I think, and they were pretty together in 18. They've got more togetherness, more tournament experience now, having suffered a semi-final defeat in 18, and certainly the management staff have as well. Gareth had never been as a manager to that standard. He has now already. He wants to go beyond the semi-final, but he knows what it's like to go into a semi-final. And definitely there's more talent in this group, more know-how, more composure, I would say, as well. And that's been reflected on how we've dominated games and the opposition have failed to get efforts at our goal.
And I suppose that's where we can say that this delay to the Euros has benefited England to an extent.
Yeah, I think you're right now. I think that, touching on really what Stuart's just adding to that, you can't, there isn't, I mentioned about ticking boxes. A lot of managers think of players and do they tick this box, that and that, and then you think of it as a team perspective, and England are so much an improved side from 3 years ago, in my opinion.
And you made a statement, if this tournament went ahead a year ago, Harry Kane wouldn't have been fit. Mm-hmm. I said before this tournament, and Harry hasn't played particularly well in the early rounds of the tournament, the group stages, whether we like it or not, he hasn't played well as hasn't scored. But because of his key ingredient that he is to this team, and I said before the tournament, if Harry Kane doesn't do well, we won't win the tournament, and I stick by that now. With 2 games hopefully to go, Harry Kane's going to have to deliver, and probably deliver the knockout blow to the opposition, and that's how important he is to this group. Now the others have filled in and done their role, and I think Sterling's carried the team on occasion, and various other players have all played their part, but I still think with 2 games to go, if we're going to win the tournament, Harry Kane's got to be integral to what we do.